Welcome. I'm Melva Persico. Come with me. Let's meet new people and learn about their experiences in this episode of Our Culture to the World. Our guest today is Carole Salces Nadeo. Please, Carole, please introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, Melva and everyone. My name is Anne Salces Nadeo. I'm a French national. I'm also Spanish and recently acquired the U.S. citizenship. I am. I live in South Carolina and teach at Clemson University. And I'm married to a Mexican national. So as you can see, my everyday life is full of different cultures.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Very diverse. Yes. I always wondered about your last name. And this morning I was thinking about it and I said, I should ask you because it seems so Spanish. But then I know you're from France. So, yeah, but you explained that. So now you live in the US, you live in South Carolina. When you first came to the US, how was it for you? Was there anything that was strange? What were your first impressions of the place and the culture?
So my first time in the US was back in 2005. And I was going to UC Irvine to teach French as a graduate student for a year, like an exchange student with my French university. And so that was in California. And first impressions, everything was really very big. The scale is very different. And a lot of cars, the streets in France are walkable. In the United States, a few of them only are walkable, and definitely Los Angeles is not. So that was two main impressions that I had when I arrived.
Yes, and the walkability. I know people talk a lot about walkability in certain cities as against others. Yes. So, what about and in addition to those first impressions, was there anything that was kind of like a culture shock for you?
Well, there's this tendency I noticed in American culture in general to over praise what people do. Like everything is like something I would consider regular. He would be awesome, fantastic,
Amazing.
amazing.
Yes.
So this, and it was actually difficult when I started teaching because I had the mindset of the French. So it is French people are quite negative. So it was just okay, it's all right. You're doing all right. Well, I should have said, it's fantastic. Go ahead, keep working. You're doing amazing. Very different wording. And finding good food, like finding natural and processed food at a reasonable price was also a challenge when I arrived, which is not the case where I'm from.
Okay, it's easier to get more natural and processed food. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Healthier lifestyle. Yes, and I understand what you said about the overpraising and so on because coming from Guyana and a lot of how we act and react has come to us from the British, and so I think I'm still struggling with trying to adapt after all these years to dealing with my students differently. Yes. So, in terms of, was there anything that was a stereotype about the US, that maybe when you actually came here and started living here, or spending more time here and then eventually living here, that you really saw that maybe it wasn't so?
Yes, well, the guns, right? Um, if you're from abroad, you have this impression that every single person in the US is carrying a gun and visibly. At least that was mine. So definitely that was a real stereotype.
Okay.
And especially in California, there's not many people visibly carrying guns. Another thing is, like, you tend to think that the US is more advanced in everything. And this is really not true either. They're more advanced probably in technology and probably many other things, but not everything.
Well, you see, that's the media, right?
So yes, of course. Well,
you sell yourself, how they sell
you
themselves.
have to experience it and make your own opinion then.
Right. And then what about, as a French woman living in the US now, were there any stereotypes that people in the US had about French culture that you were able to dispel in your interactions with them?
As well. And I learned that, well, actually with my husband first, that he's from Mexico, and the stereotype he had, and also with my students at Clemson. Apparently there's a stereotype that French people stink and are dirty.
Oh, never heard that.
Yes. So, well, hopefully, dispel this one.
Well, listen, you sat right next to me in the office. Oh, yeah.
Also that we're rude.
Oh.
And I can explain this one. I had the other problem, the other way around, that, and I'm still working on it actually, it's how to address people, how to talk to people. This is a very different way you do that in France and you do that here in the US. It feels like in the US, people are more considerate of others' feelings, and it feels like you have to walk on eggshells a little bit more than in France. In France, you're more direct. Maybe, you're not that considerate of us. Maybe you're more earnest. I don't know, but that was the stereotype, that you are rude. And I do think that I appeared as rude when I arrived. Then I learned to change the way I address people.
Yes. I know. I understand exactly what you're talking about. So now that you have...
And also, people
go ahead.
think that all French people are food and wine experts. But they're not. They're really not.
All right. So you were able to dispel those stereotypes, or you were having the opportunity as you interact with people. So now, what do you appreciate most about the people here and their culture?
I really appreciate the work ethics, and the fact that I've been given more opportunities in the US than anywhere else. I also lived in Switzerland 3 years in the past, and it is not the same as in the US. So yes, given more opportunities at work. What I also really appreciate here is not perfect, but there's more gender equality than there is in France or in Switzerland. Those two latter societies are very patriarchal still. So women's rights is more advanced here in the US. That's another thing, they're more advanced. And very important is the positive attitude of people in general. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, French people are quite negative people. And the American people are a lot more optimistic. And that is, a ray of sunshine. That's really agreeable.
I guess it helps with your overall mood and your overall outlook on life.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, what opportunities have you had to share your home culture with the people that you interact with here in the US?
Well, I have the most opportunities I have there with my students at Clemson University, since I teach French.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to interact and speak in French with the students and explain the culture, try to explain some aspects of the French culture. With my students in the classroom, sometimes outside the classroom, but it's not very easy. But I had, well, I am developing a virtual reality space where we recreate some monuments of Paris, and where I bring my student in so they can experience in 3D some parts of Paris, and trying to be somewhere between the classroom and the study abroad experience, you know.
Right.
So trying to bring the culture a little bit more alive in that space. With my friends, not so much. I have mostly Spanish-speaking friends. So I live more in their culture since they're more numerous and less in mine, but maybe sometimes I can share, you know, some fun facts or cultural, historical facts, or food, maybe.
Food is always a good way to share culture. It's yes. Um, yes. So I was just going to say a little bit about the virtual reality that you mentioned earlier. That I guess it's the way the students could actually feel that they're maybe in the streets, experiencing whatever, maybe monuments, being there, you know, and so on. So that's an excellent way. And congratulations on that. And I'm
Thank
excited to
you.
see, you
It's a
know,
work
how
in
that
progress.
develops. Sorry?
So thank you. It's a work in progress, but
Yes, yes.
I already had a semester working on it. So some of my students already went in the space and could experience, yes, a
Excellent.
little bit.
Right. So now that you have lived outside of France for quite some time now, what lessons have you learned from living abroad in general, because you mentioned that you had lived in Switzerland for a few years, and then now in the US?
Mhm. Well, the first thing, it is difficult to live in another country, to live in another culture. You have to learn a lot of things, and also you miss your own culture. So there's some people who keep abroad or in the community. So if I was joining the French community in Greenville, I would live more with my in my culture, but I don't do that. So it's difficult. There's a lot of things that you miss, and it's definitely not for everyone. That's the first thing of living abroad. Now, it is also extremely rewarding in terms of what you learn. Again, it's different, so you have to learn a lot of new things, to meet very different people. I like to be in the diversity of people, of culture, of thought, and that is more available. You live abroad, and the more countries you live in, the better, because of all these reasons.
Yes, yes. Okay. So, what are your final thoughts about the importance of appreciating other cultures?
Well, I would say again, it is extremely important to keep an open mind, to welcome other cultures, to try from other cultures, because to learn from others. And the more we think we're different, the more we should try to learn from those people that are different. I don't really like that term, but
right.
you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah. Because sometimes people think different is bad, but different is not bad. Yes. And so we can learn from everyone. Yes, that is what
from
you
everyone. Exactly. Yes.
Right. Okay. So thank you so much, Anne Carole, for making some time for sharing your experience with me and with the viewers. I would like to thank the viewers for watching, and I'm going to see you all soon as we meet new people and we share their experiences in our next episode of Our Culture to the World. Thanks, Anne Carole.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. You're welcome.